June 4th, 1944, 11:12 a.m. local time. 150 miles west of Cape Verde, the Atlantic swells roll like liquid mercury under a merciless sun. Aboard USS Guadalcanal, the loudspeaker crackles. "Surface contact, bearing 270, she's broaching." You're on the flight deck, salt crusting your lips, eyes squinting against the glare. Then you see it. A gray steel tower punches through the waves, water cascading off the conning tower like a whale breaching. U-505. The hunter has become the hunted. Depth charges still bubble in her wake, white plumes against the deep blue. The U-boat lists hard to starboard, her screws thrashing the surface into foam. Oberlieutenant Sorsay Harold Longa stands on the bridge, one hand gripping the rail, the other raised in surrender. His uniform is soaked, his face the color of ash. Captain Daniel V. Gallery leans over the wing of Guadalcanal's bridge, megaphone in hand. "Boarding parties, away!" His voice cuts through the diesel roar like a blade. Lieutenant Albert L. David is already sprinting aft, .45 in one fist, whaleboat crew at his heels. The Pillsbury's motor whaleboat slams into the troughs, spray exploding over the gunnels. David doesn't flinch. He's thinking one thing. If that boat goes down, every secret inside goes with it. On the U-boat's deck, a German sailor frantically waves a white undershirt. Another tries to toss a canvas bag overboard. David sees the glint of brass inside. "Stop him!" he roars. The bag splashes, sinks. Too late for that one. But the real prize is still below. The whaleboat hooks on. David is first over the saddle tanks, boots slipping on algae-slicked steel. The hatch to the control room yawns open, black as a grave. He drops inside, flashlight beams slicing through choking diesel fumes and the stink of fear. Somewhere in the darkness, a fuse hisses. Scuttling charges. 30 seconds, maybe less. You can almost taste the cordite in the air. David's heart hammers against his ribs. One wrong step, and the Atlantic claims them all. The control room of U-505 is a claustrophobic nightmare. Pipes sweating, gauges shattered, red emergency lanterns painting everything in bloodlight. Water sloshes ankle-deep, rising fast through ruptured valves. Lieutenant Albert David's flashlight catches the scuttling panel, 2 primers already glowing cherry red. "Find the charges!" he barks. Seaman First Class William R. Machen, a Chicago farm boy turned torpedo man, shoulders past him, wrench in hand. He rips open the bilge hatch. There, 2 300-pound demolition packs wired to the keel, fuses spitting sparks like angry hornets. Machen doesn't hesitate. He yanks the wires free with bare fingers, skin blistering on hot copper. The hiss dies. Silence, except for the groan of steel and the slap of water against the hull. David exhales, but only for a second. "Codebooks! Enigma! Move!" They fan out. In the radio shack, Petty Officer Second Class Zenon Zumski, a Polish refugee who fled the Germans in '39, spots the safe bolted under the soundman's table. Locked. He swings his axe. Metal screams. Inside, the Holy Grail. A leather satchel stuffed with the Kriegsmarine's daily Enigma settings for June, July, August. Rotor wiring diagrams, the Quartz Signalis short signal codebook, everything Bletchley Park has been bleeding for. David stuffs it all inside his shirt. The fabric is already soaked with sweat and seawater. He can feel the weight of history pressing against his chest. Up on deck, Captain Gallery watches the U-boat wallow, half the crew leaping into the swells. German sailors tread water, hands raised, eyes wide with disbelief. One of them, a stoker named Hans Gerbeler, mutters in broken English, "You cannot take her. She will sink herself." Gallery just grins. Not today, Fritz. But below, the pumps are losing the fight. A Kingston valve the size of a manhole has been smashed open by a depth charge. Seawater roars in like a freight train. The U-505 is dying, and she's taking her secrets with her unless David's team can plug the artery. You're right there in the bilge with Machen, shoulder to shoulder, stuffing mattresses, hammocks, anything into the breach. The water is ice cold, black, and rising to your waist. Somewhere aft, a bulkhead groans like it's screaming. David's voice cuts through the chaos. If she goes, we go with her. Keep her afloat. Deck of U-505, 11:47 a.m. The sun beats down like a hammer, but the steel underfoot is already cooling, bleeding heat into the Atlantic. Lieutenant David emerges from the forward hatch, eyes wild, shirt bulging with the Enigma hull. He thrusts the satchel at Corpedeman's mate, Second Class Gordon B. Williams. Guard this with your life. Williams nods, cradling it like a newborn. The codebooks are still warm from the Radio Shack's dying generators. Captain Gallery's voice booms over the bullhorn from USS Pillsbury, now alongside. Rig the tow. I want this boat in Bermuda by sunrise. A cheer ripples across the task group, but it's cut short. A guttural crack splits the air. The U-boat lurches, bow dipping. The smashed Kingston valve has torn wider. Water cataracts into the forward torpedo room. Seaman Stanley E. Deal, a welder from Detroit, dives headfirst through the hatch with a collision mat and a prayer. Inside, the torpedo room is a maelstrom. A Type G7A torpedo has broken loose, slamming against the bulkhead with every roll. One spark, and the whole boat becomes a Roman candle. Deal wrestles the mat over the flood, his buddy Eugene Red O'Neill jamming wooden plugs the size of baseball bats into the jagged holes. Their hands are shredded, but the geyser slows to a hiss. On the bridge, Oberleutnant Longa is hauled aboard Guadalcanal in handcuffs. His eyes never leave his boat. Gallery offers him a cigarette. Longa takes it with trembling fingers. "You are insane," he muttered. "No one captures a U-boat alive." Gallery exhales smoke towards the sky. Today, someone did. Lines snake across the gap, 2-inch hawsers, then the heavy tow cable. USS Abnaki, a fleet tug, takes the strain. The U-505 groans, reluctant, but her stern lifts. The pumps, jury-rigged from Pillsbury's fire hoses, roar to life. For the first time in hours, the water level drops. David stands on the conning tower, scanning the horizon. No other U-boats, no Luftwaffe. Just the vast, empty Atlantic and the impossible sight of a German submarine flying the stars and stripes upside down from her periscope, the signal for a captured prize. But one secret still hides below. In the captain's tiny cabin, a sealed lead tube is bolted under the bunk. Inside, the actual Enigma machine, rotors still set to the day's key. If the Germans realize it's gone, they'll change everything. David's team has minutes, not hours. You can almost hear the clock ticking in the silence between waves. 12:31 p.m. The U-505 wallows under tow, a wounded Leviathan trailing Guadalcanal like a stubborn mule. The Atlantic has turned glassy, reflecting a sky the color of gunmetal. Every man in the boarding party is bone-tired, hands raw, uniform stiff with salt and blood. Lieutenant David ducks back below, boots squelching. The control room is a shambles, charts floating like dead fish, the periscope sheared at the base. He heads aft, past the galley, where a pot of ersatz coffee still steams on the dead stove. The captain's cabin is a coffin-sized space behind the wardroom, door ajar. Inside, the air is thick with the ghosts of diesel and fear. Longa's bunk is unmade, a half-finished letter to his wife in Bremen pinned under a coffee mug. David's flashlight sweeps the bulkhead and stops on a glint of brass beneath the mattress frame. A lead tube, 6 inches long, sealed with wax and stamped with the Reichsadler. He pries it free. The weight is wrong, heavier than lead. Unscrewing the cap, he tips the contents into his palm. 4 Enigma rotors, each the size of a hockey puck, their wiring pins gleaming like gold teeth. Beside them, a folded sheet. Today, Schlüssel M settings, handwritten in Longue's precise engineer script. The final piece. David's breath catches. This isn't just a code book, it's the machine itself, still dialed to the exact moment U-505 died. Bletchley Park has been guessing at rotor wirings for months. With this, they won't guess anymore. He stuffs the rotors into a canvas pouch, tucks the settings inside his belt. One more sweep. Longue's iron cross, a photo of 2 blonde children, a dog-eared copy of Das Boot. He leaves them. Some things aren't prizes. Emerging on deck, he signals Pillsbury. A signal lamp blinks back. Prize secure. Proceed to Bermuda. But David knows the real destination is a windowless hut in England where mathematicians in cardigans will tear open the future of the war. Aboard Guadalcanal, Captain Gallery greets him with a slap on the back. "You just stole Hitler's diary, Al." David manages a grin, but his eyes are on the horizon. Somewhere out there, Admiral Donitz is about to realize one of his wolves has vanished, not sunk, captured. And when he does, the entire Kriegsmarine will scramble to change every key, every frequency, unless the capture stays secret. Gallery reads his mind. Not a word, boys. Not to your sweethearts, not to your diaries. This boat never existed. The task group steams east, the U-505 trailing behind like a ghost ship. Its swastika is already painted over with a crude American flag. German crewmen blindfolded below decks have no idea their submarine is sailing into legend. You stand on the fantail as the sun bleeds into the sea, watching the tow cable taut as a violin string. The war just tilted, and no one will know for decades. But one question still burns. What happens when the first decrypted U-boat signal, sent after the capture, reaches Bletchley Park unchanged?
June 5th, 1944. Dawn breaks blood red over the task force, painting the wake of U-505 in streaks of crimson foam. The tow cable hums like a live wire, every swell testing the knots. Aboard Guadalcanal, the mess deck buzzes with hushed voices, but Captain Gallery's standing order hangs heavy. Loose lips sink more than submarines. Lieutenant David sits in the wardroom, nursing black coffee that tastes like axle grease. The Enigma rotors sit in a locked safe beside him, guarded by a Marine with a Thompson submachine gun across his knees. David traces the wax seal on the tube with his thumb, imagining the clicks of the machine back in Berlin, rotors spinning like the fates themselves. Below, the German prisoners pace their improvised brig, a chain locker stuffed with 22 U-boat men from Lange down to the greenest machinist's mate. They're fed Spam and white bread, luxuries that draw wary glances. Stoker Hans Gabler, a Berliner with a face like chewed leather, whispers to his comrade, "They treat us like guests. What madness is this?" Madness or mercy? Gallery's gamble. He's read the Geneva Protocols, but more than that, he wants them talking, off the record, in broken English about Wolfpack routes and refueling rendezvous. One slip could confirm the code hall's value before Bletchley even cracks it. The convoy slices through the trade winds, albatrosses wheeling overhead like curious scouts. David takes the con for the afternoon watch, eyes glued to the radar repeater. A false echo at dusk, probably a whale, sends hearts into throats. "All hands to battle stations," he snaps, and the deck erupts in steel-shod boots and the chatter of 50 cal mounts traversing. Nothing, just the endless blue. But the tension coils tighter. Dernitz's BDU headquarters in Lorient must be lighting up by now. U-505 overdue on patrol report, no distress call, just silence. Gallery pores over captured charts in his sea cabin, pencil marking pencil. Supply dumps off the Azores, a ghost fleet of milch cows waiting to be gutted. Night falls like a curtain. David can't sleep. He climbs to the flying bridge, wind whipping his collar. The U-505 rides the swells astern, her silhouette black against the phosphorescent sea. You can almost hear her whispering secrets to the waves. Depth settings for the Grand Banks, evasion patterns for convoys SC-158. Every knot closer to Bermuda is a knot around the Kriegsmarine's throat. By midday, June 6th, Hamilton Harbor comes into view. Pastel forts and palm-fringed bays, a postcard mocking the grim steel serpent in their wake. Tugs nudge U-505 into a sealed dry dock, cranes swinging like gallows arms. Gallery addresses the crew on the pier. "Gentlemen, you've just made history. Now bury it deep." The code satchel vanishes into a diplomatic pouch, bound for Washington on the next PBY. But as David watches the seaplane lift off, rotors churning spray into rainbows, he wonders, will the boffins at Hut 8 even believe it? Or will this prize sit dusty on a shelf while U-boats still prowl? And then a radio man jogs up, intercept flimsy in hand, the first Wolfpack sighting encrypted clean as day. The keys work. The tilt becomes an avalanche. June 19, 1944. Hut 8, Bletchley Park. 03:17 a.m. A single bulb swings above a table littered with cigarette ash and cold tea. Alan Turing, sleeves rolled, eyes bloodshot, stares at the Enigma rotors Lieutenant David pulled from Langey's bunk. They click into the Type M4 machine like missing teeth. The first test message is a Wolfpack grid reference. U-530, rendezvous 46 degrees north, 25 degrees west, 22 June. Decrypted in 43 seconds. Turing exhales a word no one expected. Christ. Outside, the night is still, but inside the hut the air crackles. Teleprinters clatter. A wen named Joan Clark tears off the strip, hands shaking. It's the real thing, no changes, they don't know we have it. The avalanche begins. By dawn, Admiral Horton at Western Approaches receives the first fruit. A full Wolfpack disposition, 12 boats, fuel states, torpedo loads. Convoy HX-295 reroutes 200 miles south. Not a single merchant lost. Dernitz's logs later call it the blackest week. Back in Bermuda, Captain Gallery paces the dock beside U-505, now stripped of her batteries and painted haze gray. The German crew, still blindfolded on transfer to POW camps, believe their boat lies at the bottom. Gallery signs the secret oath in triplicate, then burns the carbon copies in a coffee can. If this leaks, every U-boat in the Atlantic changes key by sundown, he tells David. But his mind is already across the ocean. He imagines the next intercept. U-630 reports mechanical failure, requests milch cow. The RAF scrambles a Liberator from Iceland. One depth charge, one less wolf. July rolls in, the captures multiply. U-505's gift keeps giving. Acoustic torpedo settings, new cipher wheels, even the location of a secret U-boat pen in Norway. Each decryption is stamped Zegfield, Gallery's code name for the operation, and rush to the Admiralty. Merchant sinkings plummet from 400,000 tons a month to under 50,000. In Lorient, Admiral Dernitz slams a fist on the chart table. Phantom convoys, ghosts in the ether. He orders a full key change, too late. The new settings are already in the diplomatic pouch from a second capture, U-574, snared off Newfoundland using the old keys. You stand in the shadows of Hut 8 as the map of the Atlantic turns from red to green. Each green pin a ship that made port. Each missing red pin a U-boat on the seabed. The Battle of the Atlantic, once a slaughter, becomes a graveyard for the hunters. But one final secret remains sealed. The fate of the men who pulled it off. David, Gallery, the boarding party, sworn to silence for 50 years. Their medals locked in a vault, their story buried under classification stamps. Until the war ends and the avalanche finally stops. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay.
The Japanese surrender is signed aboard USS Missouri, but 4,000 miles away, in a humid warehouse outside Washington, D.C., the real epilogue begins. Lieutenant Albert David, now commander, quietly promoted, stands before a steel vault the size of a rail car. Inside, U-505's Enigma rotors, Lon's logbook, the scorched satchel, even the white undershirt used as a surrender flag. A Navy archivist in crisp whites seals the door with wax and a lead stamp. Top secret, Ziegfeld, 1995. David's hand lingers on the cold metal. He can still smell the diesel, feel the deck tilt under his boots. The Medal of Honor hangs heavy around his neck, awarded in a closed-door ceremony with no cameras, no speeches. Gallery got his too, then vanished into a desk at the Pentagon, forbidden to speak the boat's name. Across the Atlantic, Bletchley Park's huts are dismantled board by board. Turing's bomb machines are smashed with sledgehammers. The Wrens burned decades of intercepts in oil drums behind the manor house. The avalanche leaves no footprint. But the numbers don't lie. Between June 1944 and May 1945, Allied shipping losses dropped to 1.5 ships per week. Over 700 U-boats are sunk or surrendered. Historians will later calculate the capture of U-505 shortens the Battle of the Atlantic by 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months of convoys reaching Murmansk, of bombers flying from Britain, of D-Day beaches held against counterattack. 6 to 9 months, roughly 3 million tons of cargo, 500,000 Allied lives spared from torpedoes that never fired. In a POW camp in Louisiana, Hans Gerbeler learns the war is over from a Red Cross parcel. He stares at a photo of U-505, now a museum ship in Chicago, her capture still classified, and whispers, "Unmöglich." He never learns his own boat's secrets starved the wolf packs to death. Years pass. David dies in 1969, lips sealed. Gallery in 1977, same. The vault stays locked. Children grow up believing the Atlantic was won by radar and hedgehogs alone. Then, 1995. The stamp cracks. The vault yawns open. Historians pour in. The satchel is still damp to the touch. Lange's letter to his wife, unfinished, yellowed but legible. "If we do not return, tell the boys the sea is cruel but honorable." The world finally learns. One submarine, 1 hour, one impossible boarding party. Not a battle of fleets, but of wills. Of a farm boy yanking fuses with blistered hands. Of a captain who refused to let the prize sink. You walk the deck of U-505 today under the Chicago sky. The dents from depth charges are still there. The Kingston valve patched with American ingenuity. The safe where the codebooks hid, now empty, but echoing. The silence is broken. The avalanche, 50 years later, still thunders.